Welcome back. If you've just joined us, you're watching the news at 10 on Channels Television, coming to you live from Lagos. A reminder of our top stories. President Muhammadu Buhari to enhance the operational resources of the armed forces. Nigerian army commends soldiers for repelling insurgents in Gwoza local government area, Borno State. Senate to begin probe of former chairman of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Ibrahim Lamode. And French President François Hollande vows to destroy ISIS. Well, we can now share with you some of those pictures that were sent in to us. Let's begin with this one from Imo State. Our eyewitness reporter is calling on Governor Okorocha to help rebuild this road and end the suffering of the people who are resident in that area. Next is the picture of a fire outbreak in a market in Warri, Delta State. Our reporter wants the state authorities to help such accidents, to prevent them, and provide firefighting officials with modern equipment. This one comes from Calabar, where our eyewitness reporter says he had to wait for several hours just to buy a few liters of fuel. He wants the federal government to help end the scarcity. And finally is this picture taken by our eyewitness reporter in the Shaki area of Oyo State. Our reporter wants the Federal Road Safety Corps to stop vehicles like this one from traveling along the highway, especially during the Yuletide. Thanks a lot for sending in all your pictures, and we do expect more from you. Nigeria may have to consider putting in place a legal framework to fast-track transition of power from one government to another after general elections. This proposal is coming from the Minister of Information, Alhaji Lai Mohammed, who explained that such an arrangement will address the delays in government activities as experienced after the last presidential election won by the All Progressives Congress. The Information Minister, who made the proposal at a forum in Abuja, recommended the same framework for the state government. And the Imo State Governor Okorocha has called for concerted efforts to unify the country. Governor Okorocha was speaking at the Federal Radio Corporation of Nigeria lecture series with the theme Managing Change in Democracy, where he was a guest lecturer. He outlined the current situation where the various ethnic groups do not value each other and how this has negatively affected Nigeria's development. According to him, the current administration is only seeking to move the nation to a better place and is not concerned about ethnic or religious sentiments.
Our country is very prime. That's why I love that old national anthem which says, though tribe and tongue may differ, in brotherhood we stand. That anthem came out of concern. The person that produced that anthem knew that Nigeria will have that problem. When, first of all, the first political parties we had in Nigeria was the one championed by Zik, NCNC, the one championed by Sadauna, MPC, and the one championed by Awolowo, AG. That was the beginning of division of this country. And voting was along the same pattern. That's what we are trying to rebuild today as a nation. This issue of tribalism and sectionalism. As it stands today, few months ago, when President Jonathan was in power, it appears to the people as though it is the time for the South or the Christians. Today is President Buhari. You also have the challenge that is some local Nigerians, it will be the time for Muslims or the time for Northerners. No nation can build under this circumstance situation. We must unite.
Imo State Governor there, Okorocha. Members of the BAYELSA Elders Consultative Forum have endorsed the incumbent governor for a second term in office. Several groups have thrown their weight behind Governor Seriake Dixon since he declared his intention to run. According to them, the governor has done well enough in his first term and deserves a second term.
The governor has been here for the last 3 years and 11 months. The major things he has done speak for themselves, and the electorate will be able to decide and endorse the second term through the ballot box. We want to see a fair and free election with no violence.
It's It's about 6 months since the present administration came on board, although the Federal Executive Council was inaugurated last week. Many now expect a clear economic direction from the government, especially against the backdrop of falling oil prices and the government's determination to reduce the cost of governance. So, what should Budget 2016 focus on? To look at some projections and expectations for Budget 2016, I'm now being joined on the News at 10 by an economist, Dr. Boniface Chizia. Thanks a lot for joining us on the News at 10.
Thank you, Joma, for having me.
Okay, what are the key sectors that this budget should focus on in terms of appropriation to the most vital areas that we need right now?
Well, Joma, I think if you permit me, let me give some kudos to the president. I think that we need to commend him for the fact that for the first time in the history of this country, he's bringing together planning and budget. It's very important because what tends to happen is that that's why we've not been implementing our plans. There's this disconnect between you have a plan, you put it on your shelf, and it's not being implemented. So you run a budget. And people see the budget as just a platform for them to be able to spend money. I think that's very important. I think you should be commended. I've heard that there have been some discordant comments.
Yeah, some say it should have stayed with finance.
Yes, no, it's not correct. And that's the best practice. And I say this from the position of having been a practitioner myself. I worked as a planner. And I know that for us to solve this problem, we had to bring in finance and planning under a deputy general manager at UBA in those days. So I think that for the first time, it has to be commended. And then I will begin to hope that with this happening, that we will have the prospects of implementing our plans and the 3-year plans and so on would improve.
Let's look at some of the figures that we're hearing already. The ministers had their retreat, and part of what they discussed was 8 trillion naira. They had said 2 trillion for capital expenditure and 6 for recurrent. What do you think?
6 for recurrent. That's serious. I think first of all, what strikes you is that you say to yourself, we are taking 20% budget and we are taking off from 4 trillion plus naira, and where we had a capital expenditure of under 1 trillion. And if we're going to 8, and then I'm talking about 6 for recurrent. Now, then we're still having the same problem. The first thing that strikes you, you say to yourself, how are we going to mobilize these resources? How are we going to go? If you look at the challenges we have in the oil market, dwindling resources, revenue is not there, how are we going to grow resources, going from 4 to double the resources? And that's going to be the first challenge. And of course, one of the problems we've had with budgeting in this country is the fact that we've lamented the fact that the sharing of the budget allocation between recurrent and capital expenditure is not what it should be. If you want to grow this economy, you want to drive this economy, then you must allocate substantial amount of budget expenditure to your capital heads, overheads. Now, if you do 8, supposing we're able to do 8, we take 8, we write it in the papers. I don't know how authentic that is. And you now do 6 as recurrent. You can say yourself, how's that going to come? We know that. Something.
Continue.
We know that this government has talked about some social issues about meals at school and so on and so forth. And then so you say, is that what this money is going to put into? If you're going to do 6, then we should be thinking of if we had 4 trillion budget and we did under 1 as a capital, which I'm sure we didn't even get to. We didn't even meet that estimate. And if you're doing 8, if you're going to do 8, I've questioned the fact that 8 is, in fact, is a bit.
So does it concern you that in terms of the plans that they want to implement in this new government, does it concern you at all that we see a figure like 2 for capital when we have enough things to do with power, infrastructure? What would you likely have thought it should be?
But Ijoma, we have to wait until the facts are put on ground, for us, and then so we see exactly what where it's going to go into, because the way it is now, it's difficult for you to conceptualize, to see how you're going to spend 6 trillion naira on recurrent expenditure. I mean, I can't see where it's coming from. Like you did observe, if that's going to be the case, we'll be thinking about at least 50-50. That's about 50%, should go to capital expenditure. And you did make the point, we have major areas, we have challenges in the power sector, we have agriculture, we need to diversify this economy. And so we can't just keep on. And we're trying to rationalize, ministries and so on. We went down from 36 to 25 because we want to make sure that we manage our current expenditure better. And so if we're doing that and we're still thinking of 6 to 8, then that doesn't resonate with me.
We continue to worry about dwindling oil prices. What benchmark crude oil price do you think this was pegged on?
That's why I did say that we have to wait until we have more information on the budget. Certainly, if we're going to do our budgeting tomorrow, we can not realistically do more than $50 a barrel. I know that we mustn't do 45 because what most people don't understand is that the lower it is, the issue you're going to have in terms of the budget size, in terms of the budget, the gap, the deficit in the budget would come into it. We cannot realistically, as at today, be seen to be doing anything more than $50 a barrel. It's about 45 now,
yes.
and then the outlook does not look rosy.
All right, thank you so much, economist Dr. Boniface Chizia, for sharing your thoughts with us on the News at 10 tonight.
Thank you for having me, John.
When the News at 10 returns, stock markets in London and Frankfurt hold firm, but travel and leisure shares fall as investors worry about the impact of the Paris attacks. That's on Business. Do join us again.